Things appear to be getting worse, but how much worse is it? The data is not always clear. The idea of the collapse of Western society is a hotly debated topic, but are the changes negative by definition, or is it more about perception? It is possible to come to a conclusion. The idea of social collapse is tied to three different cultural elements: economic, political, and religion. 10 areas of concern are considered. These trends seem to contribute to instability and a decline in our standard of living. 1. Polarization and political dysfunction. Increasing ideological division between left and right has led to political gridlock in governance, and this has eroded trust in our institutions. U.S. Congress approval ratings have hovered around 20% for years, and populist movements in Europe, e.g., France's National Rally, reflect distrust in elites. 2. Declining trust in institutions. Public confidence in media, government, and academia is at historic lows. In the U.S., Gallup polls show trust in media dropped to 16% in 2022, while trust in government is similarly low across Europe. This lack of trust fosters cynicism, reduces civic engagement, and makes populations vulnerable to misinformation or authoritarian appeals, destabilizing democratic systems. 3. Economic inequality and stagnation. Wealth gaps are widening, with the top 1% owning a disproportionate amount of assets. Inequality in the U.S. hit a 50-year high in 2020. Real wages have stagnated, and housing affordability is at an all-time low in cities like London and San Francisco. Inequality breeds resentment, fuels populist uprisings, and reduces social cohesion, while economic stagnation limits opportunities and strains public resources. 4. Debt and fiscal unsustainability. Government and household debt levels are soaring. U.S. national debt exceeds $33 trillion, over 120% of GDP, and Eurozone countries like Italy face similar challenges. Entitlement programs like Social Security face insolvency because of the debt load. High debt limits fiscal flexibility, risks currency devaluation, and could trigger economic collapse if confidence in repayment wanes. 5. Demographic decline and aging populations. Birth rates are below replacement levels in most Western nations, e.g., 1.5 in Germany, 1.6 in the US, while populations age rapidly. By 2050, Europe's working-age population could shrink by 20%. This is largely because of the disproportionate influence of the baby boomers who have had their children and are now in retirement or close to it. Shrinking workforces strain pension systems, reduce economic growth, and create labor shortages, potentially leading to social and economic instability. 6. Erosion of civic norms and social cohesion. Rising tribalism, identity politics, and cancel culture fragment societies. Incidents of political violence, like the January 6 U.S. Capitol demonstration and the riots in European cities, highlight fraying social bonds. In response, the justice system is becoming more politicized and turned into warfare, especially against anyone who questions the agenda of the left. Weak social cohesion undermines collective action, fosters internal conflict, and makes societies less resilient to external shocks. 7. Technological disruption and job displacement. Automation and AI are displacing jobs faster than new opportunities emerge. Studies, e.g., Fry and Osborne, 2017. Estimate 20 to 30% of jobs in Western economies are at risk of automation by 2030. Mass unemployment or underemployment could exacerbate inequality, fuel unrest, and strain welfare systems, especially if retraining lags. 8. Energy dependence and transition risks. Western nations face energy insecurity due to reliance on foreign fossil fuels and challenges in transitioning to renewables. Europe's 2022 energy crisis, driven by reduced Russian gas, exposed vulnerabilities. Energy shortages or price spikes disrupt economies, inflame public discontent, and could derail climate goals, creating a cycle of instability. 9. Decline in educational outcomes. Western education systems show stagnation or decline. U.S. students rank 13th globally in math, PISA 2018, and European universities lag behind U.S. and Asian competitors in innovation. Ideological battles over curricula also distract from core learning. A less educated workforce undermines innovation, economic competitiveness, and critical thinking, weakening long-term societal resilience. 10. Geopolitical weakness and internal focus. Western nations face rising global competition from powers like China, while internal divisions reduce their ability to project strength. NATO's cohesion is tested, and U.S. military readiness is questioned amid recruitment shortfalls, e.g., 25% shortfall in 2022. A weakened geopolitical stance invites external challenges, reduces global influence, and could embolden adversaries, risking security and economic stability. While these trends do not necessarily spell collapse, they are not positive indicators. If the West does not develop better responses to the threat posed by the left and its allies, these trends will spell the end of the West. Societies have historically adapted to challenges through innovation, reform, or collective action. The question is whether Western institutions have not been infiltrated and rendered useless. The question is, are these trends manageable within the conventional social model, or are new solutions needed? Economic growth, technological advances, and democratic institutions were used to mitigate risks in previous eras. Is this still possible? We will now look at housing, taxation, and crime as indicators or a worsening situation. The data is primarily from North America and Europe. Debt will also be considered because it impacts all three areas of concern. Housing affordability and household debt are interconnected. Rising home prices often drive the levels of borrowing, while debt burdens strain financial stability. Home prices have outpaced wages in many Western cities. In the U.S., the median home price-to-income ratio was 5.1 in 2023, up from 3.0 in 2000, making homeownership unattainable for many. In Europe, cities like London and Paris see similar trends, with UK house prices 8.3 times average earnings in 2022, per ONS. Rent burdens are also high, with 30 to 40% of income spent on rent in major cities. In the U.S., total household debt reached $17.8 trillion in Q2 2024, Federal Reserve, driven by mortgages, student loans, $1.7 trillion, and credit card debt, $1.1 trillion. Canada's household debt-to-income ratio is among the highest globally at 180%. In Europe, countries like Sweden and Denmark have household debt exceeding 100% of GDP. Higher interest rates, e.g., U.S. 30-year mortgage rates near 7% in 2024, increase borrowing costs. While delinquency rates remain low, 1.5% for U.S. mortgages, they're rising for credit cards, 3.2% in 2024, signaling financial strain. Institutional investors, e.g., Blackstone, buy up housing stock, reducing supply and driving up rents. In the U.S., corporate ownership of single-family homes rose 15% from 2015 to 2022. Unaffordable housing fuels resentment, delays family formation, and exacerbates inequality, as wealth concentrates among property owners. High debt levels make households vulnerable to interest rate hikes or recessions. A wave of defaults could destabilize financial systems, as seen in 2008. Younger generations, e.g., millennials, Gen Z, face barriers to wealth building, eroding faith in economic systems and fueling populist movements. 2. Taxation trends reflect increased funding of public services, as lowered incomes increase the demand for government intervention. To address deficits and aging populations, some Western governments are increasing taxes. Increased taxation always lowers median income. In Europe, tax-to-GDP ratios are high, e.g., 46% in France, 41% in Germany per OECD 2023. Squeezing middle-class incomes. In the U.S., while federal taxes remain lower, 17.8% of GDP, state and local taxes add pressure, and proposals for wealth or corporate tax hikes spark debate. Multinationals and wealthy individuals exploit loopholes, reducing revenue. The EU estimates €1 trillion lost annually to tax havens. Public perception of unfairness, e.g., Panama Papers fallout, erodes trust. Aging populations increase spending on pensions and healthcare, forcing tax hikes or cuts elsewhere. However, this is because money collected to fund pensions were transferred elsewhere. In the U.S., Social Security and Medicare face insolvency by 2035 without reform, CBO projections. High taxes or perceived mismanagement fuel anti-tax movements. France's 2018 Yellow Vest protests, sparked by fuel tax hikes, highlight how tax policies can ignite unrest. High taxes can discourage investment and entrepreneurship, slowing growth. In Europe, high labor taxes correlate with lower job creation in some sectors. Perceived inequity in tax systems, e.g., corporations paying less than workers, undermines social cohesion and fuels distrust in governance. If tax revenues can't meet rising spending needs, deficits grow, risking debt crises or austerity measures that spark public backlash. Crime trends vary across Western nations, but rising or shifting patterns in certain areas raise concerns about social order, policing, and public safety. In the U.S., violent crime rose in some cities post-2020. FBI data shows a 5.6% increase in murders from 2019 to 2021, though rates stabilized by 2023. Cities like Chicago and Philadelphia report persistent gun violence. In Europe, urban areas like Paris and London see rises in knife crime, e.g., 7,000 knife offenses in London, 2022. Shoplifting and organized retail theft are surging. In the U.S., retail theft cost $112 billion in 2022, National Retail Federation. In the UK, shoplifting offences hit a 20-year high in 2023, ONS. Opioid and fentanyl crises drive crime in North America. U.S. overdose deaths reached 107,000 in 2022, with fentanyl linked to gang activity. In Europe, cocaine trafficking fuels violence in ports like Rotterdam. U.S. police departments face 20 to 30% recruitment shortfalls, Perf. 2023. Partly due to post-2020 defunding debates and public scrutiny. In Europe, police unions report similar morale issues amid rising workloads. Public frustration with soft-on-crime policies, e.g., bail reform in New York, early release in the UK, grows, as recidivism rates remain high, e.g., 68% reoffending rate in the UK within a year. Rising crime undermines trust in institutions and reduces quality of life, driving urban flight and economic decline in affected areas. Crime spikes, especially when tied to inequality or ethnic tensions, can deepen divisions and fuel far-right or vigilante responses. Crime diverts resources to policing and incarceration, while businesses face losses or relocate, weakening local economies. Technological advances will alleviate some of these issues. For example, AI will help with the shortage of doctors and robots will take up much of the shortage in the skilled trades. But the world's solutions have always been more about changing the type or relative strength of our problems, rather than eliminating them. What we need to understand is that regardless of the problem, the key issue is the state. It is not and never has been the solution. But to dive deeper, the only true problem is parasitism. There are only two options in this world: we pay our way, or we do not. That is it. The state has never paid its own expenses and entrepreneurs have never enjoyed the full fruits of their labor. Labor has always been called upon to bail out the indigent. Labor has never received the full value of the work it does. This is the sole reason why the labor theory of value has been shelved. This system cannot tolerate labor being paid a full day's pay for a full day's work. It has never happened, and it never will happen in this system of things. If anything, things are getting worse. Indeed, all of the trends discussed above are simply symptoms or the increased pressure on labor to pay the costs of a broken and failing system. Until labor units and fights back, the system will continue to edge closer to collapse.